Remember that you guys have a test tomorrow, okay? I want you to do it tomorrow. I do not want it done Thursday or Friday. I want it done tomorrow. Is everybody good? It's going to look pretty much just like this review, okay? So I'm telling you right now, if you have any questions, please ask. Zoomers, if you have any questions, please ask, okay? Don't let it sit by and then freak out tomorrow when you're, good gracious, freak out tomorrow when you're actually doing the test, okay? If you need help at any point tomorrow, make sure that you email me, okay? Is everybody good? Some of you said you had some trouble on last night's homework. We're going to review first. That may clear some of it up after I close out the Zoom recording. Then if you're on Zoom or even if you're in here, if you need some help, just let me know, okay? And I'll help you out. But again, this review might clear up some of those questions that you have, all right? So if we look at the first one, it says use the degree and leading coefficient to sketch a graph of a function, a polynomial function, and describe the end behavior. So look at number one. And guys, your test is kind of like this too. And this is not a hit to her or anything. Miss Gordon made it. So just make sure that you're following the right questions, okay? Just be very careful because they're kind of all squished up on the paper. All right? So just be careful, okay? All right. So what's your degree for this first one? How do you get that? It's your highest power. What's your leading coefficient? 1. How do you get that? The number in front of the x with the highest power. What does the degree of 5 tell you? Why is it opposite? It's an odd function. So it's opposite. What does the 1 tell you? So that means it is increasing. So that means the end behavior is going to be something like this with stuff in the middle. I always usually just draw a line, but it's whatever you want to do, okay? So remember, we always start with the left. The left is represented by negative infinity, and the right is represented by positive infinity. So what's happening on the left? Where is it pointing? Negative infinity. Where's the other side? Those should not be any numbers. They should always be infinities. Everybody understand that? Do not put any random numbers. All right, look at your next one. It's the same exact thing. What's your degree?
4.
4. Make sure you pick the highest power, please. Leading coefficient. What does this tell you? It's even, so it tells you it's the same direction. This is negative, so it tells you it points down. So it's going to look something like this. So on the left, it goes to, and on the right, it goes to. Guys, that's it. Okay, don't forget that. Find the following for each polynomial. You're going to do the end behavior, but this time it's factored. Guys, if you can't remember how to do this, like with the adding, subtracting, blah, blah, whatever, what's another way you can do it? Yeah, put it in your calculator and see what the end looks like. So I'm going to do that for you just so you don't have to worry about it. So I'm going to go into y equals, make sure you type it in correctly, 2x squared, parenthesis, x minus 5, x plus 3. All we're looking at is the end. So I'm going to zoom 6 so that we have the same graph. And we're going to look on the left first because we read left to right. What's happening? They're both pointing in the same direction, which is to what? Look at it. Positive infinity. Okay, well, what if you didn't like the graph and you wanted to do it by hand? Remember, on the top, you add your x's up. So we have 2 x's right here. We have 1 in this set of parentheses, and we have 1 in the second set, which makes 4. That means they point in the same direction. Everybody good? On the bottom, you're looking for your leading coefficient, so you're multiplying them. What's your leading coefficient for 2x squared? 2. What's your leading coefficient for this x?
1.
And for this x? This gives you a positive 2, so that means it is increasing or pointing up. Okay? Do it either way. I don't care. I just feel like sometimes you'll mess up that leading coefficient on this if you've got that square. Remember, if we had a square. So on the next one, I'll show you both. All right, you can put this in your calculator. I'm going to talk about relative min and max in a minute. I'm not even sure. I'm going to look because I don't think that that is on the test at all. I think I told her to take it off because you guys should know how to find a max and a min. Okay. All right. So your degree, the degree of -2, remember we would split it up like this, is 0. Be careful right here. What's the degree of this term? 2. The degree of the next term? How many x's does it have? 1. And then the last one. Add that up and we get 4. It's okay. So what does that tell you? It points in the same direction. So let's look at the bottom. We have a -2. Right here, we have a leading coefficient of 1, but it's squared. That's where I'm worried you guys will mess up. Okay, so be careful. We have a 1 with the x minus 5, and we have a 1 with the x plus 8. What do we get when we multiply it all together? What's that mean? It's pointing down. So on the left, it points to negative infinity, and on the right, it points to also negative infinity. All right, so I still have this last one in my calculator, and I'm just going to show you guys, and remember this video is going to be up there later, okay? So I'm just going to show you how to find your relative max and min. So this is your max, this one is your max. You do second trace, and it's a max. And it says go to the left side, so we go to the left side of the max, and we hit enter. Then it says go to the right side. We hit enter, and then it says guess where it's at. So I go back up to the top and hit enter. So where is our maximum? We will have 2 minimums. I cannot see them on here. So I'm actually going to zoom out one time and see if I can see the bottoms. I'm getting there. I'm going to try it even without seeing them and see if I can do it. Second trace. This time it's a minimum. I want to go to the left side, the right side, and then guess. And it's a really ugly one. That's why it's not good. Does everybody see that? So your relative minimum would be -2.1 and -56.4. But then there's also another one on this side over here. And again, I'm pretty sure that I told her to take them off. Go to the left. Go to the right. And then guess. And we get 3.6 and -239.5. But again, I wouldn't worry about those too much. Nah, they're not on there. So you don't have to worry about max and min. Is everybody good? All right. Find the following parts of a polynomial and sketch the graph. Use points. F of x equals x plus 2 squared, x minus 5, and x plus 1. There's not going to be any graphing, like per se, but you might have to do a sketch. Okay, so it might be a sketch, but it'll be like a multiple choice sketch. Does that make sense? Like you had on your quiz that one day? All right, so what is your degree? We do it again. What's your degree of your first term, degree of your second term, and your third term, which gives you a degree of 4. Try to get all that in here at one time. There you go. Leading coefficient, what's your leading coefficient right here? 1 squared. Good. What's your leading coefficient in the middle? And your other one? 1, which gives you a leading coefficient of 1. What does it tell you? It's what? Is it pointing in the same direction? It's an even 4. No worries. So it's going to look like this. So on the left and on the right, where is it pointing? All right. So this should say x-intercepts. The paper folded over should say x-intercepts. So if my factor is +2, what's my answer going to be? Negative 2. And since it's squared, that means it's going to have a multiplicity of 2. So you'll see M2, and I want to write it like your test shows it, okay? So why did we get that? Because it was squared, so that means there's 2 of them, multiplicity of 2. What about your middle term? If you have an x minus 5, what is your answer? Positive 5. It is just a 1, so it doesn't have multiplicity. And the last one is x plus 1, so your answer is negative 1. How many should you have? If it's degree 4, you should have 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you're good to go. All right. Y-intercept. Do you remember how to find the y-intercept? Plug 0 for x. So 0 plus 2 squared, 0 minus 5, and 0 plus 1. What is 0 plus 2? Squared is 0 minus 5. 0 plus 1. 1. I know those are hard ones. Just kidding. 4 times negative 5 times 1. So your y-intercept is negative 20. If you put y there instead of f of x, that's fine. Any questions on finding those parts? Everybody okay? If it's factored, the x-intercepts are really easy. If it's not factored, we're going to factor some in a minute to find them, okay? All right, so some of you have had trouble with writing polynomials. These are easy ones, okay? So if your x-intercepts are negative 3, 4, and 1/2, we're going to write our factors. If it's an answer of negative 3, what's our factor going to be? If our answer is positive 4, what's our factor going to be? And then in this one, if my answer is positive 1/2, my factor is going to be negative 1/2. What do I do with that 2? Yeah, I can move it to the front. So then I have x plus 3, x minus 4, and 2x minus 1. Now, what I told you is easier for me. I like to multiply the back 2 first, and then I'll put the other one in it. But I do want you to multiply it out. So I'm going to start with the back 2. X times 2x. X times negative 1. Negative 4 times 2x. Negative 4 times negative 1. And then I'm going to put the x plus 3 in the front. Is everybody okay? You do have like terms in there. You can go ahead and add those together. What I typically do is just kind of mark them out and make it one term. So it would be negative 9x. Distribute x to all 3 terms. X times 2x squared. Okay, and I'm just putting it up here to give myself some space. X times negative 9x. X times 4. And then remember what I said, I like to line them up this way. 3 times 2x squared. So I put it underneath my x squared so I can just add it up. 3 times negative 9x. And 3 times 4. So I'm going to drop my 2x cubed. Negative 9 plus 6. Negative 3x squared. 4 minus 27.
Negative 23.
And then drop your 12. That is your function. That's it. So don't make it more complicated than what it is, okay? All right. We have x-intercepts of 0, 3, and negative 2 with a multiplicity of 2. What's really crappy about this one is she gave you 4. So it's even more multiplying. Okay. Everybody got that? Sorry. So what do we have? Right here. If my answer is 0, what is my factor? Think about it. Remember our factors like this are x equals negative 3, x equals 4, and x equals 1/2. So what would this one be? X equals 0. So we don't have a plus or minus 0, so our only factor would be x. Did everybody see that? So anytime you see a 0, you're just putting the variable x. What about the positive 3? And then it says negative 2 multiplicity of 2. So what would your factor be?
X plus 2 is 3.
Perfect. All right, so to multiply it out, this is x plus 2 squared. I'm going to distribute just in the back. X times x. I'm going to do this at the same time. X times 2, 2x. 2 times x. 2 plus 2 is 4x. And then 2 times 2 on the end would be 4. You can go ahead and distribute that x in, or you can distribute the x minus 3 and then the x in. It doesn't matter. What I would do is go ahead and do the x. So if I distribute the x just to the first set of parentheses, what do I get? X squared minus 3x. Perfect. And then I still have x squared plus 4x plus 4. Now I have to distribute again. Start with your x squared to everything. X squared times x squared. X squared times 4x. X squared times 4x. 4x cubed. X squared times 4. Distribute your negative 3x. Negative 3x times x squared. Negative 3x times 4x. And negative 3x times 4. Perfect. I'm going to line them up and then finish it out. Bring down your x to the 4th. What is 4 minus 3? 1x cubed. 4 minus 12. And then we have that minus 12x on the end. That's your function. You ready? Good? All right, so what's different about the next one?
Sorry, back.
Say it one more time. Hold on. It's not in factored form. They give you what? What? No, those are not factors. They gave you the points, right? They gave you the points. Well, what are the points? What is this? Huh? Yeah, they're not all x's. Which ones are x's? Yeah, these. Do I see this? All right. So we have y equals, remember we had that a, right? Because it wants the least degree. The other ones we didn't have to because we already knew what they were. So this one, because it gives you that y-intercept, is weird. So if you have an answer of negative 2, what's your factor? If you have an answer of 4, your factor is. And then if you have one of negative 6, your factor is positive 6. Now, to figure out what a is, we plug this in for our x and our y. So what was our y? Negative 4. We don't know a, but we know that x is 0. Clean it up. 0 plus 2. 0 minus 4. 0 plus 6. 6 times negative 4 times 2 And then how do I solve? We get A equals -4 over -48. Reduce it. 1/12. So I'm going to let you cheat a little bit on this one. A is 1/12. And you had factors of x plus 2, x minus 4, and x plus 6. And to save time, I'm not going to multiply those out, okay? Can you multiply them out? You should be able to by now, okay? So look at your answers. If they give you this, please don't multiply them out. If they don't give you that, go ahead and multiply them out. All right, so what about the next one? What about the next one? What do you see? I don't really like this one at all. So let me explain to you how to do it. You do it just like number 3, but the reason I don't like number 4's graph is because look at our x-intercepts. What are your x-intercepts? 1 and some decimals, right? And we don't know what those decimals are. I would never give you this on the test. I would give you whole numbers if I gave you a graph because you obviously cannot see them. Does everybody understand that? So what you would do is exactly like this. You would write the coordinates of your x-intercepts, and then you would write your y-intercept and find your A. Does that make sense? All right, so again, what you would do is first find your x-intercepts. You would find your y-intercept, and you can see that your y-intercept on this one is 0, 1. And then you would work like number 3. Does that make sense? So they didn't give you the coordinate, they gave you the graph. So you pull those coordinates. Just make sure if you see a bounce like at 1, that's a multiplicity of 2. So it would be a squared term. All right, it says write a polynomial function. This is where I could have multiple answers. Where the end behavior on the left, so if we sketch it on the left is going to positive, and on the right is going to negative. So what does it have to look like that? What's the degree have to be? And the leading coefficient? Make it simple on yourself. The least odd degree, I mean, you could do 1, it's fine, but we're doing higher order, so I'm going to do x cubed. To make it negative, put a negative on the front. Don't do anything too crazy. Like, don't kill yourself on questions like that, okay? Don't try to make it just because you just, I mean, you can if you want to, but I'm only looking at that first term, so whatever you put after this is not gonna matter. All right, end behavior. On the next one, it says on the left, it points to infinity. On the right, it points to negative infinity. And it says it has a negative leading coefficient. What do we do? What's our degree? Uh-huh. Yeah, it's the same thing. That's all you gotta do. It's going to be odd because it points in opposite directions. It's going to be negative because it says it has a negative leading coefficient. Is everybody good? It cannot be even because they're not pointing in the same direction. All right. Here's your factoring. So while we're doing this factoring, I'm going to show you a little bit of solving too. I don't know if it's on the test or not. I mean, I'll look in just a minute, but I told her to put it on there, but I don't know if it went on there. Okay. So factoring higher order. The first thing you need to see is how many terms. If it's 3 terms, remember, always do GCF, okay? Always GCF. And then after your GCF, it has 3 terms. You either use cheater method or slide and divide. What happens if there's 4 terms? If there's two terms, it's either going to be perfect squares or perfect cubes. Okay, two terms is either going to be squares or cubes. I'm going to actually start with number 2 and then I'll go back to number 1. Number 2 does not have a GCF. We can look at it until it doesn't have a GCF. So can we do cheater method or do we have to do slide and divide? Yeah, there's no number in front, so we can cheat. Factors of 100 that add to negative 29. Guys, it's not that hard. Factors of 100 that add to negative 29.
Negative 25 and negative 4.
Thank you so much. Since I have x to the 8th, I'm going to split it in half for each factor. So it goes to x to the 4th minus 25. And x to the 4th minus 4. What do you notice about both of these? If it's two terms, they're either squares or cubes. Which one? Perfect squares. So remember, I split it in half, pairs and shares. I give a perfect square to each set of parentheses, but one is positive, one is negative. On the next one, your perfect squares, x squared minus 2 and x squared plus 2. I have two terms. Are any of them perfect squares? No. This is as good as it gets. So there's your factor. If you had to solve it, you would take each factor. This is last night's homework. You take each factor, set it equal to 0. I would add 5. And then I would take the square root, and remember that there are two solutions to a square root problem, a positive, negative. So there are 2 of my 8 answers. If I did the next one, I subtract my 5. When I take the square root, I have to pull out an I. There's 4 of my 8 answers. Okay, all things you know. If we happen to run out of time, we're going to go out and come back in, okay? So just come right back into this soon. If we're solving the other ones, x squared minus 2 equals 0. We would add 2, take the square root. We can't simplify it, so plus or minus 2. Subtract 2. We can't have a negative, so plus or minus I square root 2. Those are your 8 answers. Is everybody okay with that? Those are the easy ones to solve. Number 3 is exactly like that. I want to move to number 5. Move to number 5. Okay, number 3, number 6, exactly like that. Number 8, exactly like that. So I'm not going to do those. 3, 6, and 8 are exactly like that. So let's move to number 5. What's your first step to factoring? So we're going to take out an x. That leaves me x to the 6th minus 1. These are two terms. So it's either squares or cubes. Cubes mean you can split it into 3. Pairs means you can split it into 2. These are pairs. Okay, these are pairs. So x to the 6 will split into x cubed and x cubed. Got it? Is everybody good? You can't take like the cube root of 6. You can't do that. Okay. So we have x cubed minus 1, and x cubed plus 1. So these are the ones that you're kind of having trouble with on your homework last night. Perfect cubes, I'm sure. And only because it's not that you're getting them wrong. You're probably doing some signage wrong, if that makes sense, okay? So watch your signs. So finish it up. The x is fine. Remember perfect cubes. I showed you the formulas to that yesterday. We take the cube root of each. So this is x and 1. Your first factor, I'm going to slide this down so it's not squished up, is the same as your original factor. square the first, change the sign, multiply them together, square the last. You have to do the other one as well. The only thing that's going to be different is they're going to have opposite signs. Any questions on the factoring part? All right, so I'm not going to do all of this solving, but I'm going to remind you how to solve it. So this X, this is all we were doing on this one. We were just factoring. We would set X equal to 0. That's one of your solutions. We're supposed to have 7 of them, okay? So that's one. X equals +1 is one of them. And over here you have a -1. So there's 3 of your 7 solutions. Your other 4 are going to be imaginary. Okay. So we're going to start right here. X equals -b would be -1 plus or minus big fat square root 1 squared, minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. -1 plus or minus 1 minus 4 is -3. This should be 2 times 1 over 2. The only thing I can do is take this negative out. So x equals -1 plus or minus I square root of 3 over 2. What is going to be the difference in this one?
It's not gonna have a,
Nope, it's going to have the I.
one that
It's going to have a +1. So the only difference in that, and they all work out like that, y'all, is that it's going to have a +1 instead of a negative. So there's 2, 4, 5, 6, 7 solutions. So I assume that on your quiz yesterday, those are the ones you probably had trouble with. And again, it's not that you're doing it wrong. It's probably signs, like you're mixing up signs somewhere. All right. Number 7 is exactly the same as that one. It just doesn't have a GCF to start with. Okay. I'm going to move up to number 4. 1 and 4 are the same. 1 and 4 are the same. So I'm doing this. I'm doing all the problems technically, just not doing every single one of them. How many terms do I have? 4. But the first thing you need to do is do what? GCF. So we drop all of the powers. And then we group them. Ignore this X for a minute. What comes out of this set of parentheses? X to the 4th, leaves me with x squared plus 5. Does everybody see that? What comes out of the second set of parentheses? What do they have in common? A -1, leaves me with x squared plus 5. Notice your 2 sets of parentheses are the same. So you left out x to the 4th minus 1. The same set was x squared plus 5. And then don't forget the GCF that you left out. Is there anything else in there that I can factor? This one's long. It's almost over though. Anything else in there I can factor? X to the 4th is perfect squares. So that gives me x squared plus 1, x squared minus 1. And then we still have that x squared plus 5 on the end. Is there anything in there I can factor? Yes or no?
No.
Yes? The x squared minus 1 again I can do. The plus 1 I can't because it's a plus. So it stays. X squared minus 1 is perfect square. So x plus 1, x minus 1, and then x squared plus 5. This is your fully factored form. From each one of these, you can get your solutions. Okay. Any questions on the 4 terms? Everybody good? All right, let's flip it over. This is the easy part. This is your division. Again, we have about 3 minutes. We're probably going to run out of time. Just come right back in. How do I do this? And I don't want you to do long division. I want you to do synthetic. So in the backwards box, what am I gonna have? A cross, be careful on these. 3, 2, 1, 0, so it's good to go. What are my numbers? Keep going. Uh-huh. Drop your 2. Multiply by the box. Add. Multiply. Add. What? Is everybody good? Don't stress out. 5 times 9 is? Remainder of? Would this be a factor? No, because it's not a remainder of 0. So then what would it be? 2, keep going, keep going, keep going. Is everybody good? All right. Same thing on the next one. Except for we have, I'm gonna do the one on the bottom. Except for we have the 4 in front, so where does that 4 go? Under the 9. What goes in my backwards box? If we run out of time, please come back in. Uh-huh. What goes out to the side? Keep going. Bring down your 40. 40 divided by 4 times -9 plus 50. This is the same number. Negative times a negative makes a positive 90 minus 82 divided by 4 times -9. Remainder of. Last thing I need to do. Do not touch the remainder. So we get 10n squared minus 10n plus 2 minus 6 over 4n plus 9. Come back in. It's going to shut out in just a second. Come back in. Everybody else okay?